At our annual family dinner, my grandma suddenly turned to me and asked, right in front of everyone, "Is the $2,000 I send you every month still enough?" The entire table froze. Forks dropped. Eyes widened. No one even knew she was helping me. But what they didn't realize, I wasn't just taking money. I was building an empire they never saw coming. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. You know how some moments are so shocking they don't feel real? That was me, sitting at the dinner table with my entire family, my parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, when my grandmother, out of nowhere, looked straight at me and said, "Madison, sweetheart, is the $2,000 I send you each month still enough?" Silence. Fork stopped midair. Chewing paused. Every single head turned toward me. Even the clinking of glasses stopped. You could practically hear the collective gasp across the table. I could actually hear my cousin choke on his drink. Someone coughed. Someone else muttered, "Wait, what?" And in that moment, I smiled. Because what they thought they knew about me was only half the story. For as long as I can remember, I was the one who didn't fit the mold. In a family full of high-achieving professionals, my brother the orthopedic surgeon, my cousin the lawyer, another cousin already a VP in some investment firm, I was the girl who kept changing paths. Community college dropout. Then a barista. Then trying out freelance design. Then working part-time at a bookstore. Then doing something with Instagram that no one understood or cared enough to ask about. To them, I was the failure. The soft-spoken, artsy one who never really figured life out. They never said it to my face, not directly, but it was in their eyes. The way they smiled politely when I talked about my latest project. The way they changed the subject quickly, or gave those thin, tight-lipped responses that basically screamed, "Well, at least she's trying." The only person who never looked at me that way was Grandma Rose. She saw me in a way nobody else did. She never rolled her eyes or made me feel small. She actually listened. She asked questions. And she believed me even when I wasn't so sure I believed in myself. A year and a half ago, during one of our weekly phone calls, she asked how my digital storytelling business was going. I told her the truth. I wanted to help small businesses grow by making short-form video content for them, managing their socials, helping them go viral. But I needed tools. Gear. Software. Ad budget. Time. I was trying to do everything on a $700 a month paycheck. That night she asked, "What would you need to really go all in?" I hesitated, feeling embarrassed. But she insisted. So I told her honestly. A few days later, she transferred $2,000 into my account. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed staring at the screen, completely stunned. Then came the message. "Madison, I believe in you. Use this. Don't look back." And then it became a regular thing. $2,000 every month. No questions. No guilt trips. Just support. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't need the judgment. I wanted to build quietly. To grow something that was mine, not something I had to prove to others. So I got to work. I learned. I experimented. I failed a lot. But then I landed my first real client, a small local bakery that wanted help with reels and promotions. I helped them hit 50K views in a week. They referred me to another client. Then another. I reinvested, improved my workflow, built a small team, and suddenly, I wasn't just doing something on Instagram. I was running a legit business. 16 months in, I had clients from 4 different states. I had retainer contracts. I had brands messaging me. I even mentored 2 young women from underfunded schools on how to build their freelance portfolios. But still I kept it low-key. No flashy posts. No long monologues about my success. I wanted to focus on doing, not showing off. And then came the annual Blake family dinner. Everyone was there, dressed up, loud, proud, polished. I came in my usual jeans and blouse, hair in a low ponytail, no makeup. Just Madison, the girl who still lived in a small apartment and kept trying things. We were halfway through the main course when Grandma, casually sipping her wine, looked across the table and asked me that question. "Is the $2,000 I send you each month still enough?" I swear I saw my dad's hand freeze mid-cut, his knife still in the roast. My aunt's jaw dropped. My brother actually said, "Wait, what money?" That's when I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I wiped my mouth with a napkin, took a breath and said calmly, "It's more than enough. And I've saved every dollar." They stared at me. I explained everything. How I'd used the money to start my own digital marketing agency. How I now worked with dozens of small businesses, ran campaigns with thousands of views, and was making more than most of them had assumed I ever would. I reached into my bag and pulled out a white envelope. Inside was a check. $36,000. Every cent she had given me. I had saved it all. I had promised myself I wouldn't touch it unless I had no choice. I looked at Grandma and said, "You gave me a chance when no one else did. But I don't need the money anymore. I want to give it back." She didn't even open the envelope. She pushed it back toward me, smiled and said something I'll never forget. "Madison, don't pay me back. Pay it forward." I looked around the table. No one said a word. Not even the cousins who always had something to say. That night, for the first time, they didn't see me as the one who didn't make it. They saw me as the one who did. Quietly, boldly, on my own terms. And I saw myself as someone I had always hoped to become. Not the family disappointment, but the one who rewrote her story. $1. One video. One dream at a time. Let me rewind a bit. I was always seen as the lost cause of the Blake family. While my cousins were becoming lawyers, doctors, engineers, racking up degrees, LinkedIn accolades, and six-figure offers, I was the one they whispered about in the kitchen when they thought I couldn't hear. There I was, taking community college classes I couldn't finish because I was juggling 2 part-time jobs just to pay rent. I'd drop one class because I couldn't keep up with the schedule, then drop another because I couldn't afford the books. I moved apartments 3 times in 2 years, always chasing a cheaper rent. I ate ramen 5 nights a week. My clothes came from thrift stores. I didn't go on vacations, didn't buy lattes, didn't post anything flashy online because there was nothing flashy to post. And when I wasn't working at coffee shops or delivery shifts, I was at home, on my laptop, learning, watching tutorials on editing, studying marketing funnels, practicing design, planning, sketching, testing things that most people didn't understand, especially my family. To them, it was just weird stuff on the internet. That's what they called it, mockingly, dismissively. If I had $1 for every time someone in my family said, "Wait, what do you do again?" with that look on their face, I probably wouldn't have needed Grandma's help in the first place. Every holiday, the judgment hung in the air like a thick perfume. The fake smiles. The long, polite pauses after I spoke. The backhanded compliments that were more insult than praise. One Thanksgiving, I remember walking into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. My aunt was talking to my cousin in a low voice, just low enough that she thought I couldn't hear. She said, "Poor Maddie. Still doing that internet thing. She'll have to get a real job eventually." That sentence burned. Really did. But I just smiled, grabbed my water, and walked back out like I hadn't heard a thing. Because the truth is, I had gotten used to it. The judgment, the doubt, the way they couldn't see past their own definitions of success. What they didn't know, what none of them had ever taken the time to ask, was that I wasn't failing. I was building something. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fast. But brick by brick, I was building a life they couldn't see coming. See, while they were chasing traditional careers, I was chasing a vision. I wanted to help small businesses grow. Especially the ones that didn't have giant ad budgets or fancy consultants. I believed that a good story told the right way could change someone's life. A video that connected. Post that went viral. A reel that made someone feel seen. That was the power I saw in social media, and I wanted to harness it. But to do that, I needed time, tools, and trust. 3 things I didn't have. Until Grandma Rose stepped in. She was the only one who listened. Not just heard me, but truly listened. Every Sunday we talked on the phone. I'd tell her what I was trying to learn, what software I was saving for, what clients I was hoping to land. And one day, after I told her how frustrated I felt, how close I was to giving up, she asked, "How much would it cost for you to just focus on this? Really give it a shot?" I hesitated. I didn't want to sound greedy or foolish. But she kept asking. Gently. Kindly. So I gave her a number. A figure that made me nervous even saying out loud. I said, "Maybe a couple $1,000 a month. Just enough to cover rent and bills, so I can stop working side jobs and focus full-time." She didn't even blink. 2 days later, she wired me $2,000. And then she did it again the next month. And the next. No lectures. No strings. Just belief. I cried when I saw the first transfer. Not just because of the money, but because it felt like, for the first time, someone saw me. Someone trusted that I wasn't lost. I was just taking a different path. That money didn't go to waste. I bought editing software, upgraded my laptop, took 2 online masterclasses, created my website, ran Facebook and Instagram ads for my own brand, offered free trials to a few small businesses. One of them became my first paid client. From there, things slowly started to move. One client turned into 2. I learned how to pitch better, how to build packages, how to deliver results. Within 6 months, I had a portfolio. Within a year, I had a business name, a system, and a list of retainer clients that brought me consistent income. All of it, every piece was built in silence. No one in my family knew. Not because I was trying to keep secrets, but because they never asked. Because they'd already written my story before it was finished. But I kept going. Because I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I was chasing the version of myself I knew I could be. The woman who believed in her ideas. The one who could turn a dream into dollars. The one who could help others grow while growing herself. The one who eventually would pay Grandma back, every single cent. Not out of obligation, but out of deep overflowing gratitude. I wasn't failing. I was building. And the day they finally saw it, the day Grandma asked me that question at the dinner table in front of everyone, that was the day the story flipped. And I didn't even have to explain everything. I just smiled. Because in that moment they finally realized. The lost cause had found her way. There's one person who never judged me, Grandma Rose. When the rest of the world, including my own family, looked at me like I was wasting my life, Grandma saw something else. She saw potential, not failure. She saw someone trying, learning, surviving even when things looked like they were falling apart. And even when I barely had $50 in my account, eating instant noodles every day, using borrowed Wi-Fi from the cafe next door, she still called me every Sunday just to check in. No agenda. No pressure. Just love. Our weekly calls became something I looked forward to. Not because I had good news to share, most of the time I didn't. But because I knew for those 15 or 20 minutes I could be completely honest with someone who wouldn't treat me like a disappointment. She'd ask how I was doing, if I was eating, how work was going, even if I didn't have much to say. And most importantly, she listened. Really listened. The kind of listening that doesn't come with judgment or suggestions, just warmth. One afternoon, during one of those calls, she asked me a question that changed everything. What is it that you really want to do, Madison? If you could do anything right now, no limits, no fears, what would it be? I don't know what made me open up the way I did that day. Maybe it was because I was tired of pretending. Maybe it was because I knew she was the only one who wouldn't laugh at me. So I told her the truth. I told her that I didn't want a traditional 9 to 5. I didn't want to sit in a cubicle counting down the minutes every day until retirement. I wanted to build something. Something that mattered. I had this vision, this dream of creating a platform where I could help small businesses grow. I wanted to use digital storytelling, videos, design, social media strategies, everything I'd been teaching myself in the background for the last couple of years. I wanted to help mom and pop shops that couldn't afford big agencies. I wanted to give them a voice, a brand, an identity. And I didn't just want to be freelancing. I wanted to build an agency, a real business, with a mission and a team. I wanted to wake up every day excited about what I was creating. I wanted to feel like my work was helping people, not just making money for someone else's bottom line. I told her all of that. Nervously. Quietly. I was sure she'd say something like, "That's a nice idea, honey, but maybe you should think about something more stable." I'd heard that from everyone else. Friends. Family. Even past coworkers. But Grandma didn't say any of that. She didn't laugh. She didn't raise her eyebrows. She didn't pause awkwardly, searching for a polite way to say, "That's never going to work." Instead, she asked a simple question. "How much do you need to really give it a shot?" I was so caught off guard I didn't know what to say. I thought she meant hypothetically. I laughed and said, "I don't know, Grandma, a few $1,000s? Just enough to get some better equipment, pay for the tools I need, maybe run some ads, build a solid portfolio." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." I didn't understand what she meant at first. But she just said it again, "Okay. I'll send you some money. Just promise me you'll actually use it. Go all in. Don't hold back." And that's exactly what she did. The next week, $2,000 appeared in my account. I stared at it for 5 full minutes. It didn't feel real. I thought maybe it was a mistake. But then she called me, same as always, and casually said, "Did you get it? Good. That's just the start. I'm going to send that every month. And I don't want you to worry about paying me back. I want you to build something you're proud of." That money was more than just financial help. It was permission to believe in myself. Permission to stop surviving and start building. It meant I could quit my part-time cafe job and focus fully on developing my idea. It meant I could invest in a high-quality camera. I could pay for Adobe software, social media management tools, and a proper website. I could book consultations with industry professionals, take courses that had been sitting in my cart for months, and run my first targeted ad campaign. It also meant I didn't have to live in constant anxiety anymore. I could sleep without worrying if I'd be evicted. I could eat more than canned soup. I could finally take a breath. And I went all in. I built my brand from scratch. Started by helping one small boutique down the street with their online presence. Made a video campaign for a family-owned bakery that boosted their sales for the first time in months. Word spread. Clients started coming to me. Some through referrals, others through Instagram. I began building a name for myself, piece by piece. Every win I shared with Grandma. Every time I booked a client, she celebrated with me. When I landed my first retainer contract, she cried on the phone. She kept saying, "I knew it, Maddie. I knew you just needed someone to believe in you." She never once made me feel like I owed her. Never once made it about the money. For her, it was always about the belief. The trust. And that trust, it became the foundation of everything I've built since. Because when no one else understood me, when no one else saw what I was trying to create, she did. She believed in me before I even believed in myself. And that made all the difference. ChatGPT said. Fast forward 18 months. The girl who once sat in front of a cracked laptop in a tiny apartment, eating instant noodles and wondering if she'd ever make it, she was gone. Replaced by someone who had turned an idea into an empire, a quiet hustle into a thriving business. But here's the thing, I didn't just build a business, I built a brand. I started with one client, then 3, then 10. And before I knew it, I was working with over 50 small businesses across the country, boutiques, fitness studios, local coffee shops, even a few tech startups. I was helping them grow through smart, authentic digital storytelling. Short-form video content, smart branding, targeted ads, viral marketing. I didn't promise magic, I delivered real results. And in a space where most small business owners felt overwhelmed by the digital world, I made them feel seen, understood, empowered. My work began getting noticed. One of the video campaigns I designed for a small wellness brand exploded overnight, 500,000 views in a week. Then a local news outlet picked it up, and suddenly, emails started pouring in. I had to hire 2 assistants just to manage the leads. It felt surreal. But the best part? I started mentoring other women, especially those who had been told their dreams were cute, but not real. Girls like me, who were hungry, creative, and full of potential, but constantly doubted. I launched a free webinar series, offered one-on-one strategy calls, and helped 3 of them launch their own brands from scratch. Watching them win? That felt even better than my own milestones. Financially, I had crossed the 6-figure mark, something I never even imagined when I was counting pennies at the grocery store. But I didn't spend like someone with 6 figures. I saved, invested wisely, took care of my health, my space, my peace. I still live simply, same apartment, same old car, same quiet life. No designer bags. No flashy Instagram stories. Because I wasn't doing it to impress anyone. I was doing it to build something solid. Something lasting. And even Grandma didn't know how big things had gotten. Not because I was keeping it from her, but because I wanted to surprise her. I had been saving most of the money she sent me untouched. That $2,000 a month? I never used it after month 4. By then I was already making enough on my own. But I kept receiving it and I kept tucking it away. Every deposit went into a separate account labeled Rose Fund. My plan was to hand it all back to her on her birthday. A quiet way of saying, "You were right to believe in me." So when the annual Blake family dinner came around, I had no intention of making any announcements. I was just going to show up like I always did, same old Madison. I wore jeans, a cozy sweater, no makeup. I didn't try to dress like a CEO or speak like one. I was just me. Because success hadn't changed who I was. It had only revealed the version of me I always knew was buried underneath the fear and doubt. The house was buzzing like it always was during those dinners. Cousins showing off new watches, aunts discussing vacation homes, my brother talking about his latest surgery schedule. I smiled, nodded, ate my food. No one asked about me and I didn't offer anything. Then dessert came. And with it, something I'll never forget. Grandma, sitting at the head of the table, calm and composed, took a sip of her tea, looked straight at me and said in the most casual voice, "Madison, sweetheart, is the $2,000 I send you each month still enough?" The room froze. Knives and forks stopped. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. I saw my dad's eyebrows shoot up. One cousin blinked in slow motion. Another dropped her spoon. I could feel every pair of eyes at the table lock onto me. Even the kids looked up from their phones. You could have heard a pin drop. Then from across the table my uncle muttered, "Wait, what?" And I just smiled. Because right then and there I realized the truth wasn't just ready to come out, it was begging to. I took a slow breath, then said, "Actually, Grandma, I haven't used that money in over a year." The gasps were loud. My mom looked completely confused. My brother's jaw literally dropped. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small white envelope. I slid it across the table toward Grandma. "I've been saving it all. Every dollar. It's all here." Everyone stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. "Grandma," I said, voice steady, "you helped me start something. You believed in me when no one else did. And now I'm running my own business with clients across the country. I make more than enough now. I want you to have it back." She looked down at the envelope, then looked back at me. And in the middle of that silent, stunned room, she smiled and pushed the envelope back. "No," she said softly. "You keep it. Use it for the next girl like you. Help her the way I helped you." And just like that, the story changed. I wasn't the disappointment anymore. I wasn't the girl who never figured it out. I wasn't the black sheep. I was the woman who built something. Quietly. With integrity. With heart. And for the first time in years, the room looked at me differently. Not with pity. With respect. The table erupted. For a few seconds it was total chaos. Gasps, forks clattering, confused stares ricocheting across the room like a pinball machine. My mom looked genuinely stunned, blinking like she hadn't heard correctly. My uncle's face turned a deep, splotchy red, as if someone had just insulted him personally. One cousin literally dropped his fork onto his plate with a sharp clang, while another sat frozen, mouth open, mid-bite. "Wait." "Grandma," my brother blurted, "you've been sending her $2,000 a month." The room fell into that strange kind of silence that's loud, thick with judgment, confusion, questions people were afraid to ask. But Grandma? She didn't flinch. She didn't look embarrassed or defensive or rattled. She looked exactly how she always looked, calm, composed, graceful in her age and wisdom. She gently placed her teacup down on its saucer, looked around the table, and in that steady voice we all knew said, "Madison had a dream. She needed someone to believe in her. So I did." That one sentence sucked the air out of the room. No one responded. No one could. And that's when I realized I couldn't sit there anymore and let them misunderstand. Let them think I'd been some charity case, just coasting along on Grandma's generosity. I needed them to know the truth, not for validation, not for approval, but because Grandma deserved for them to know what her belief had helped create. I took a breath and said, clearly, I used that money to build something. Not just for me, but for others. Their eyes all turned to me finally, really looking at me. So I told them. I told them how I used that money to invest in the software, tools, and time I needed to get serious. How I built my digital agency from nothing. How I pitched my first small business client for free just to prove what I could do. How that first client turned into 10, then 20. How I worked 12-hour days designing campaigns, making content, learning ad strategies, managing accounts, and teaching myself things most marketing grads didn't know how to do. I told them how I eventually hired 2 part-time assistants. How I created flexible job opportunities for other young women who were trying to balance work and life. I told them how one of my assistants had a newborn and cried when I told her she could work from home on her own schedule. And I told them how I now donate part of my monthly profits to a local fund that supports girls studying tech and media in underfunded schools, because I know exactly what it feels like to be the girl who wants to do something big, but has no one cheering for her. My mom was quietly dabbing her eyes now. My cousin, the one who used to tease me the most, looked down at his plate. No one interrupted. No one smirked. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a white envelope. I've been saving the money Grandma sent me. I didn't use most of it after the first few months. I didn't want her to fund my life, I just needed her help to start. So I set every deposit aside. I paused. And inside this envelope is a check for $36,000. Every single dollar she gave me. I turned to Grandma, my voice getting softer, my throat tightening. Grandma, I never needed the money forever. I just needed a chance. You gave me that. You gave me room to breathe, to try, to fail without fear, to become who I am now. Tears were threatening to spill over, but I held them back. Now let me give it back. You deserve it. She didn't reach for the envelope. Instead, she looked at me with those kind, bright eyes. Eyes that had seen so much in life, and she stood up. She didn't say a word at first. She simply walked over to me, in front of the entire table, and pulled me into the warmest, tightest hug. The kind of hug that says, "I'm proud of you," without ever needing the words. Then she leaned in and whispered into my ear. "Keep it. Go help the next girl no one believes in." That was it. That one sentence undid me. I clung to her like I was 10 years old again, trying not to cry into her shoulder. Around us, the room stayed silent, not with awkwardness now, but with reverence. No one mocked. No one rolled their eyes. I think for the first time in my life they saw me. Not the girl who had drifted, tried and failed, who played on the internet, but the woman who had built something meaningful from the ground up. The woman who had turned faith into fuel. After Grandma sat down again, the rest of the dinner was different. No more side conversations about stocks or promotions. No more passive comments about real jobs. Instead, people leaned in, asked questions. My mom touched my arm and whispered, "I had no idea, sweetie." My brother smiled and said, "You really did all that?" My uncle, the one whose face turned red earlier, actually muttered, "That's impressive, Maddie." I didn't need the compliments, but it was healing to hear them. Healing to be seen finally, not as the family's worry, but as its quiet success. And as I left that night, walking out with Grandma beside me, hand in hand, she looked up at me and said something that will stay with me forever. "You didn't just prove them wrong. You proved yourself right." And I did. Because sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you. One voice louder than doubt. One act of trust that echoes into the rest of your life. And because of her, I'll make sure that someone else someday hears a yes when the world keeps telling them no. So yeah, that's the story of how I went from family failure to silent success. Thanks to the one person who always saw something in me. Let people laugh at your beginning. They won't be laughing at your ending. And to anyone watching this, sometimes all it takes is one person who believes in you. If no one else does, let that person be you.